Hello everyone, welcome back to another React Native video, and today we're going to build a login and sign up UI. It's a very simple UI, but I've added some cool animations, so when you reload the application or you move to another page, all the things just animate from the bottom and it looks very cool. We'll be adding animations from React Native Reanimated 3.0, which is the latest version. So if you want to add animations to your app, then this is the video for you. If you find this video helpful, do like the video and subscribe the channel. I'll leave the GitHub repo for this project into the video description so you can check out the code. So without further wasting any time, let's get started. First, you need to go to React Native Reanimated and hit get started. So this first command creates an expo app with Reanimated already installed. With this, you don't have to install Reanimated manually, but if you already have an expo app, then you can install React Native Reanimated and add the plugin at the very last. If you are working with React Native CLI, then you need to install this library manually and you need to move to iOS folder to run this command. So this was the installation process, but we'll be using the one which has already the app and Reanimated. So let's just copy this command, open the terminal. Let me just move to the desktop folder and paste the command here, and let's just change the app name to login UI and hit enter. Now this will take a couple of seconds depending on your internet speed, and it will install a boilerplate code with the Reanimated installed. So once this finished, just close the terminal and open the code into VS Code. I've already done that, so this is the project. Let's make it full screen, and let me just drag my iOS simulator and let's just move it to the code window like this. Okay, I accidentally opened the Maps app. Let's just close it. Okay, so this is the project, and first thing we're gonna do is add a folder for our assets and create a one more folder inside this images. And let me just paste the images. We have two images, background and light, that we're gonna use in this project. Now let's try running this application. So open the terminal and write npm run ios. This will create a build for our ios simulator and send it to expo go, and it will start just in couple of seconds. Okay, so the app is running, and as you can see we have a toggle button, and when I press it, the width of this box will animate. So let's see how they have done it. If you move to app.js, this is the code for this component, and they're using React Native Reanimated. So they're using a shared value of 10 for animating a style, and they're animating a width of the box, and the style for this animation is here. So whenever I press the toggle button, this animates and changes the width of the box, and they're using a random value for the width. Don't worry if all of this doesn't make any sense right now, because we will be removing all of this code and making very simple animation from scratch. So let's remove all of this, and for now let's just create a simple view, and let's close it and create a text view inside this that will say hello world. Let's save it. Text doesn't exist. We need to import the text component from React Native like this and save this. Now you can see the hello world text on the very top of the screen. Now we need to set up Tailwindss CSS into our project so that we can design our application, and first thing we need to do is stop the server so that we don't run into any issues later, and we need to go to Native Wind website. It's just a third-party library that uses Tailwind CSS. Just go to Expo tab, and the first thing we need to do is install Native Wind. So let's just run npm install Native Wind. We also need to install Tailwind CSS, so let's just copy this and paste it here using npm I dash dash dev tailwind css. And after that we need to run this command. This will create a tailwind configuration file, so let's just copy this and paste it here. Okay, so this has created a configuration file. So next thing we're gonna do is change the contents of this file. So let's just copy this. These are all the files and directories in which we can use the Tailwind classes, and later on in this video we'll be having a screens folder. So let's just add a screens directory. Let's save this, and next we're gonna add a Babel plugin. So let's copy this plugin for Native Wind and open our Babel configuration file. And here you need to make sure that your React Native Reanimated plugin stays at the very end of this array, because there was a suggestion in their documentation to do that. So that's it, our Native Wind implementation is done. Now it's time to test it. So let's run our application. and it's gonna take a couple of seconds. Okay, the application is running. Now we're gonna have an error when we try to use the class name. So let's use a class name of background red 300. Now let's save this and you will see the error. So if you're facing this error, this is because the latest version of Tailwind CSS which is not properly working with native Wind. So the way to fix this error is downgrade the Tailwind CSS version, and you can do that using this command npm I Tailwind CSS and using the version 3.3.2. This will solve the issue. So after this finished, just run the project again and this will hopefully solve the issue, and it's building. Okay, so the app is running, and as you can see, our hello world component has a red background. That means our implementation is successfully working. So now we're gonna create a folder to hold all our screens. So let's create a folder, screens, and inside this we're gonna create first screen, login screen, and a sign up screen. Now to navigate between these two screens, we're gonna implement navigation, and for that we'll be using React Native navigation. So go to this website, and the first thing you need to do is install this library. Just copy this command, and let's just open a new terminal and copy this here. Next we're gonna install the second command, but if you're using CLI then you can use the command below. So let's just copy this because we're using expo. So let's just paste it here. Now let's see what we need to do next. If you're using CLI, you need to perform this one more step to cd into iOS and run pod install command. Let's skip this and move forward. Now we're gonna install this one last library. So let's just copy this and paste it here. And next here is a sample of navigation, and they have implemented home route. So let's just copy all of this code and paste it here. Let me make this console a little small and let's remove this console. Okay, so they have implemented a home screen route, but we don't have this page. So let's just remove this function, and we're gonna use login and sign up here. But first we need to create components inside login. So let's create a basic functional component for login, and same for our sign up screen. Now we can use this inside our navigation. So first route will be login screen, and the name will be login. And let's just copy this for sign up and change this to sign up. Let's also import the sign up screen here. And now we're gonna add our initial route name in the navigator. That will be the default route when we reload the application. This is going to be login. And when I save this, you can see the login screen. Now we need to hide this header, and for that we can provide some screen options. And here we can set a property header shown to false. That will hide the header on all the screens. Now let's move to login screen and start designing. First, let's give this container a class name with the background of white, height full and width full. Now here we're gonna add an image as a background. So let's import the image component and give it a class name of height full and width full, and we're gonna make it absolute so that all our content goes over this image. And the source for this image will be assets slash images slash background, which we added previously. So let's close this and save this. Background, I think I just misspelled this. It should be background. Okay, so now we can see the background image and our content goes over the image. So let's remove this, and here we're gonna add a status bar component to make all of our fonts in the status bar white. Let's give it a style of light so that all of our fonts will be white. Okay, now you can see the white fonts. So here we're gonna add the light images on top of this background image. So let's add a view and give it a class name of flex row, justify around, and width of full and absolute so that these light images goes over the background image. So let's add the image component and give it a class name of height 225 and a width of 90, like this. And the source for this image will be an image that we already stored into our assets, and the image is called light.png. Okay, so when I save this, you can see the light image. So we just gonna copy this one more time to have a smaller image, and we're gonna change the height to 160 and width to 65. Now we can see both the images. So next we're gonna add another view for the title and the form. So let's add a comment, title and form, and let's add a view and give it a class name of height full and width full and flex so that it's in a column layout. Justify around, padding top of 40 and padding bottom of 10. Okay, so inside this first we're gonna add a title. So let's add a view and give it a class name of flex and item center so that our text is centered. Now let's add a text view and give it a class name of text white, fonts bold, tracking wider, and a text 5XL class to make our text larger, and this will say login. We're not able to see it because the text is white, so if I make the text black, now we can see it. So let's change it back and move forward, and here we're gonna add the form. So let's add a view and give it a class name of flex, item center, and margin horizontal of 4 and a spacing vertical of 4. Now here we're gonna add another view as a wrapper for the input. So let's give it a class name of background black divided by 5 so that we have a transparent background color of black, padding of 5 and rounded to XL, and a width of full. So when I save this, you will see a wrapper for our input. So let's add a input inside this text input, and a placeholder for this input will be email, and the color for this placeholder will be gray. So when I save this, you will see the input inside the wrapper. We're gonna have one more input for the password. So let's just copy this and change the placeholder to password. And because this is a password field, so user should not be able to see the password. And for that, we are going to add a property secure text entry. So this way user won't be able to see the password. Let's also give this a margin bottom of 3 because we're going to have a button at the bottom. So let's add a view and give this a class name of w full, and inside this view we're going to add touchable opacity, and let's add a class name of w full and background of sky 400 and padding of 3 rounded to XL and a margin bottom of 3. So inside this touchable opacity we're going to have a text that will say login. So let me just format this, and then we're gonna add some style for this text with the class name of text XL and fonts bold, text white, and text center. And let's save this. It should be centered, but yeah, it needs to be center. Okay. So next we're gonna add another view for the sign up text. So let's give it a class name of flex row and justify center. And let's add a text that will say don't have an account. So go sign up. And for the sign up, we need to have a sign up button. So let's add a touchable opacity. And let's add a text inside this. And we need to have a different color for this button. So let's add a text sky of 600. And this will say sign up. Okay, so the P needs to be small like this. Okay, so with this our login screen is finished, and the next thing we're gonna do is add animation to this screen so that all of the elements will be animated one after another. And for that we're going to use the library that we added, React Native Reanimated. So let's see how we can add the animation. Let's see your first animation. So first thing you're gonna do is wrap the view with animated, so this way it will be animated. Then you're gonna use a shade value to animate the style, but we are not gonna use this strategy to animate our elements, we're gonna use something called layout animations. So if you scroll down, you will see layout animations, and there they have entering and exiting animations for all the elements. We have fade in, fade out animations, and if you scroll down, you will see other types of animation like bounce in, bounce right, bounce left. So we can use all of these animations, and on top of that, you can apply more modifiers on these animation, like changing the duration and changing the type of animation and using the spring animation. So we can use all of these functions. So let's just copy this import statement and use this animation into our application. So let's paste it here, and we're gonna import the animated library as well. So first we're gonna animate our light. So let's use animated.image, and here we're gonna use a property entering that will specify the entering animation when this component mounts, and the animation that we're gonna use is fade in up, and we can use other modifiers like a delay function so that it animates after 200 milliseconds. We can also specify the duration for this animation, which will be 1000 milliseconds, so that it animates for 1 second like how it's animating. And we can use other modifier like springifies to have a spring like motion. So let's reload the application. Now we have a spring like motion for 1 second. Now to make it more flexible spring, we need to add another property damping of 3. Let's reload the application, and now you will see it animates like a very flexible spring. So if you want to learn more about these functions, just go to their website and you'll see all the functions here that I'm using. So we have a damping function that how quickly a spring stops moving. Similarly, you can check out other functions and use them in your animation. So let's just remove the damping because I'm not gonna use it. Now we're gonna add animation for the second light. So let's add animated.image, and let's add an entering property. Let's just copy this property from the first image and paste it here, and we're gonna change the delay to 400 so that it animates after the first image. So let's reload, and now you will see we have animation for both of our images. Next we're gonna add animation for this text. So let's add animated.text, and entering property will be an animation of fade in up with the duration of 1 second, that will be 1000 milliseconds, and we're gonna use our springify method. Okay, so our text is animating. Next, we're gonna add animation for the text input. So let's add animated.view. And this time we're gonna use a different animation so that it animates from the bottom. And the animation is fading down with a duration of 1 second. And we're gonna use the springify motion. And let's just copy this for the rest of the elements. So let's just copy this line for the second input, and for the button, and for the sign up text. Now each of these elements needs to be animated one after another. So we're gonna add a delay of 200 millisecond for the second input. And let's just copy this for the rest of the elements. And we're gonna gradually increase the delay. So let's change it to 400 and this one to 600. When I save this and reload the application, now you will see all the elements are animating one by one. I just love how smooth the animation looks. It just makes a very good first impression. So next we're gonna add a functionality to move to sign up page. So let's add our navigation hook, that will be use navigation. And when we press on this button, this sign up button, let's add an on press method. We're gonna use navigation dot push method to navigate to sign up screen. Let's save this, and now if I click on the sign up button, we are moving to the sign up screen. So let's copy this login screen component, and let's just copy this here, and we're gonna change some of the properties. So first thing to change is the function name will be sign up screen, and this login title will be sign up. And next we're gonna change the login button to sign up button, and at the bottom this will say login, and we will move to login page, and this text will say already have an account, then go to login page. Okay, so now we're gonna have one more input field for the username. So let's just copy the email input and change the placeholder to username. Okay, now we need to increase the padding top for this container. So let's remove this class and add padding top of 48. Now it's looking good. So now we have added username. So let's add a delay for the second input, which will be delay of 200. and we're gonna change the delay for the rest of the elements, this one to 400 and this one to 600, and for the last it will be 800 milliseconds. Okay, so with this our application is complete. So let's reload. Let me just make it bigger to do a final demo. Now let's reload. So the first thing you see is a very smooth animation with all the elements animating from the bottom for both login and sign up screen. And we have made this possible using React Native Reanimated. You can explore their documentation to add animation to your React Native apps. If you find this video helpful, do like the video and subscribe the channel. This really helps me a lot. I'll leave the GitHub repo for this project into the video description. If you still have any questions about anything, you can ask them into the comment section and I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. So this is it for this video. See you in the next one.